You might remember the controversial case of Red Bull here, Vorayuth boss Yu Vitia, who drove his Ferrari into the rear of Police Senior Sergeant Major Vishian Granpraser's motorcycle, causing his death back in 2012. The prosecutor initially charged Vorayuth with 5 counts, but as time passed, 4 out of 5 cases were precluded by prescription. Currently, only 1 charge remains: driving negligently, resulting in the death of another person. As widely known, Vorayuth has become a fugitive and now lives abroad, which has delayed the trial in this case. Recently, however, the public prosecutor of the Office of Corruption Suppression Cases has charged 8 defendants in the Central Criminal Court for corruption and misconduct cases for conspiring to perform official duties dishonestly by systematically pressuring inquiry officials to change the speed of the Ferrari from originally stated 177 km an hour when it struck Police Senior Sergeant Major Vishian. As a result, the Central Criminal Court for Corruption and Misconduct Cases has sentenced Net Naksuk, former Deputy Attorney General, to 3 years in prison for failing to prosecute Vorayuth. Meanwhile, Chainarong Sangthong Aram, a former senior prosecutor, was sentenced to 2 years in prison for participating in meetings discussing the speed of the Ferrari, despite not being officially assigned to the case. The cases against the remaining 6 defendants were dismissed, with the court ruling suggesting that the academic discussion on the true speed of the Ferrari is lawful. Despite this incident occurring 13 years ago, the true speed of the Ferrari and what actually happened during the accident remain a mystery. Recently, Matichon Online interviewed Dr. Hermann Steffan, a university professor from the Vehicle Safety Institute at Graz University of Technology, Austria, who specialized in conducting full-scale crash tests used in many cases, including in Austrian courts. He invented PC Crash, the world's most renowned crash test simulation software, which produced results with near-perfect accuracy. Most importantly for this case, Dr. Steffan used his PC Crash software and conducted a full-scale crash test for Vorayuth Yu Vitia's case to solve the mystery of the true speed of the Ferrari and to complete the final piece of puzzle about what actually happened that fateful morning.
That's, of course, it's the most expensive method. There, it's then really rather clear. I got some comments and some emails from Thailand, from the lawyer. Normally I refuse. In this exception, I will do that. But if I do it, I will do it only in a perfect manner. They have to provide me a Ferrari, an identical car, but otherwise I did not want to do it.
After the crash test, what was the speed of the Ferrari when it hit the rear of the motorcycle of the deceased that the crash test suggests? What was the result would be if the Ferrari actually crashed at 177 km an hour? The prosecutor's statement that the Ferrari dragged the body of the police officers for 200 meters.
As the driver of the Ferrari did not perform a full brake, policemen remained on the roof. I'm very sure on these results in that way, on these speeds which we came out.
Could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah. So I'm professor at the University in Graz, and the whole institute which I'm leading is dedicated to vehicle safety and especially to the study of accidents. So we like to learn from accidents, from the reconstruction of accidents, how they occurred, how they can be prevented, what is the background, why they occur in that way. This is what is one of the major parts which we study. At the moment we have at the institute, I have around 60 people staff just dedicated to safety issues within vehicles, And one part of that is also the reconstruction of accidents, because the reconstruction of accidents is one of the major bases. I also do a lot of accident analysis for the court. We started to develop an own crash center, a very flexible crash center, to be able to reproduce such real accidents. We started to do that around 15 years ago.
About the reconstructing of the crash test to be used in the courts, but has there ever been any dispute or doubt of the accuracy of these tests?
Normally, if you do a full-scale crash test, there are no more doubts left. So that's, of course, it's the most expensive method in that way to validate the accident. But there it's then really rather clear, because you take the identical vehicles in that way, you reproduce the whole thing, and then you see, do the damages correlate? Are the damages, the way is the movement, the contact positions, are they appropriate in that way on the vehicle? And this is by far most accurate and most, let's say, efficient way to prove it. And we use it only if it's a real case where there is a lot of, let's say, a lot of costs involved in that way, where there is a lot of pain involved, or if there are severe injuries or fatalities or multiple fatalities. In these cases, we also do this kind of reconstruction in Austria. And I think the method in that way is, let's say, that which is most safe and most reliable in that way for the reconstruction of accident. Normally, we do a lot with numerical simulation. The tools for the numerical simulation are also from me. So PC Crash is a very important software. We have around 8,000 licenses in that way. This software is used worldwide, and we have lots of installation, and it's very well accepted in the meanwhile.
How did you become a part of this investigation of the hit and run charges of Vorayuth, and how can I ask you about who reached out to you to invite you to join this investigation?
Yeah, it was quite interesting, because I got some comments and some emails from Thailand, from the lawyer, to if I could investigate this case in that way. Normally I refuse, because it's quite intensive and quite difficult to do such a case in foreign countries, because I got also lots of requests from US to do these cases, but it takes a lot of time to consider them. It's also difficult to get the detailed original data, and therefore I normally refused to do this. But then one person I know quite well in Austria, he came personally to me, but he asked me if there is a possibility to look into this case. And then he gave me some more detailed data of this case. I saw that with the existing reconstruction, there are some weak points which are not clearly not proper in that way. And therefore I said, okay, in this exception I will do that. And I said, but if I do it, I will do it only in a perfect manner. That means that I take all tools which are available to reconstruct the case. And he just said, okay, this is no issue in that way. And I also told him that I will decide what kind of methods we will use for the reconstruction of this accident.
Could you explain me how did you conduct these crash tests?
So I decided, I immediately told him we will have to use, I will do a full-scale crash test, and I told him also they have to provide me a Ferrari, an identical car, which will have some damage after the impact in that way after the crash test. But otherwise I did not want to do it, because I thought only if we do it in a perfect manner, it will be reliable, and we will get a really good and stable result in that way. That will withstand the discussions in that way. We had, of course, quite some discussions how to set it up, because first of all, the motorcycle cannot just drive on its own. So you have to arrange, you have to know how do you develop the platform, because this was a completely new setup which we had to produce in that way. And of course we had quite some discussions, and of course we also simulated the setup, because one thing is always you simulate the real accident, but then you also simulate the crash setup, the crash test setup, to see does it behave identical or not. And this I do always with my team, and we did then with a cheap car which had a similar shape like the Ferrari, and we did a pre-test there, because the test with the Ferrari is much more expensive in that way, and that you have to be very sure that you are on the right side. But it was already, the first test was completely okay, so we did not make any change between the test of the Toyota compared to the test with the Ferrari. So the initial parameters, collision angle, velocities, all this was already evaluated properly.
After the crash test, what was the speed of the Ferrari when it hit the rear of the motorcycle of the deceased when the crash test suggests?
We concluded that the speed, the most obvious speed of the Ferrari was 80 kph. You cannot reach the speed completely accurate, because you have to release, so you accelerate the car to the speed, and then you have to release it, because during the crash both vehicles must be completely free of contact forces in that way. So that's the situation which you have. And so we finally reached then a speed of 80.1 kph, which I think is more or less accurate in that way, because the 0.1 it's very difficult to measure anyhow, but it's the result, because you control it very accurate in that way. And the motorcycle speed, we had to have a fixed ratio, so we took a third of that. That is the speed of the motorcycle which we selected, which I think was the most appropriate in that way.
What was the results would be if the Ferrari actually crashed into the dummy at 177 kilometers an hour?
Yeah, I have, if you look into my expertise, I have a crash test which was conducted by a friend of mine, where there was a speed of around 150 kph, impact speed of a car, of a similar car with like the Ferrari, into a motorcycle, and there the damage is not comparable anyhow. So the damage was really deep, the intrusion was really deep. The car was completely damaged, the motorcycle was completely destroyed.
The prosecutor's statement that the Ferrari dragged the body of the police officers for 200 meters.
Yeah.
In the crash test that you've conducted, is there any signs of that?
Yes. What we found out is the following. The issue was that with exactly these speeds and this collision angle, the policeman was thrown on the roof of the Ferrari, and he was at this position. And as the driver of the Ferrari did not react after the impact and did not perform a full brake, the policeman or the motorcycle driver remained on the roof. We could see that because we could not reproduce that because our proving ground was not long enough. So we had to brake the car in that way. And it's also it's very difficult to let the car go for 200 meters after the impact. So we had to brake, and then he was falling down, but you could see that it could remain easily on the roof of the car. And that's for sure the way how he was transported such a long distance in that way. And so the crash test completely showed this effect. It was just not, he was not transported in our crash test over 200 meters because we stopped the Ferrari with full brake immediately after the impact, so he fell down in the front, and it's exactly how it behaves in that way. But he was for sure just lying on the roof of the Ferrari, and in this way transported a pretty long distance.
How confident are you with the results of these crash tests?
Yeah, especially with respect to the speeds of the two vehicles, I'm very confident. So that it was not more than 80 kph for the Ferrari, and the motorcycle was very slow. It was in the range of a little bit less than 30 kph. So that's what we know. One thing is, I'm very sure on these results in that way, on these speeds which we came out. So for me, it's no doubt about that. Because I am the one who always has the biggest doubts, I can tell you. I always have the biggest doubts because I know exactly where could be any weak points in that way, and I want to assure that these weak points are covered and evaluated.
In your opinion, was this accident avoidable? Could the Ferrari brake or swerve out of the way just to avoid the crash with the motorcycle?
From my side, from what I could reconstruct, I at least cannot 100% assure that it was avoidable in that way. One thing, of course, which has a certain influence on that is the position of the other cars, because there were quite a lot of other cars also involved in that way. From them, we don't know exactly the positions in that way. Of course, if the other cars would have been in different positions, it might have been avoidable, but this we will not be able to solve because we don't have a clear statement and clear position where the other cars which were not involved, which were not hit in that way, where they had exactly their positions, and if the visibility on the motorcycle was prevented by them or not. This is something we don't know exactly, but if you say, okay, on the optimum of the driver of the Ferrari, it will be that way that he could not prevent the accident in that way.
So there's no time to
It was not enough time to avoid it in that way, but of course, if the cars were in different positions which we cannot solve in that way, we cannot answer in that way, it could have been that he could have reacted a little bit earlier in that way. But in my opinion, the main fault was quite clear that the motorcycle driver just crossed the road in that way, because it's not allowed to make a lane change. A lane change you can only do when you know that you don't go into a lane which is occupied by another car.
Last persons, your final verdict.
It's 80. It's 80 or a little bit less with a very good accuracy. I would say it's a plus minus 5 kph. The motorcycle was very slow. It was in the range of a little bit less than 30 kph. So that's what we know. That's not more difference. That's what I get from all the data and from my evaluations in that way. So I'm pretty sure that this is, especially the speed difference between the motorcycle and the Ferrari, is very accurate.
This interview presents results from a scientific experiment conducted solely to determine what actually happened during the accident. The findings don't change the fact that Vorayuth drove into the back of Police Senior Sergeant Major Vishian's motorcycle. They also cannot interfere with any future legal proceedings. The information revealed in this interview only provides additional context to the controversial case that has left a significant mark in Thailand's history for many years.
มติชนออนไลน์สื่อออนไลน์คุณภาพนำเสนอครบทุกประเด็นสำคัญให้คุณไม่พลาดทุกสถานการณ์อย่าลืมติดตามคลิปดีๆสาระความบันเทิงข่าวด่วนแบบฉับไวกับมติชนออนไลน์ได้ทุกช่องทางนะคะ